This is the Power Producers Podcast, where we are refining and redefining the sales game.
Rule number one is you have to believe in yourself. You're the only one who doesn't think you belong in this appointment. The prospect has already validated your existence by scheduling time with you. Get it through your head you belong here, go in there, crush it, and close the deal.
A place where sales professionals can come to learn from other sales professionals and thought leaders that have mastered their craft.
The difference between a good salesperson and a best-in-class salesperson is only 2 minutes. By spending an extra 2 minutes on what you might think is a mundane task in the sales game, you separate yourselves from the pack, you grow your book of business, you close more deals, and you retain your accounts.
As well as their peers who are still striving for perfection to achieve their why.
I have a wife and 4 kids. Failure is not an option.
Real sales professionals, real stories, real results.
It's no different than being a professional baseball player. You can't be a one-trick pony. You have to be a 5-tool player in order to succeed in this game.
This is the Power Producers Podcast, production redefined. Are you ready to feel the power?
Hey everybody, welcome to the Power Producers Podcast, where we are refining and redefining the sales game. Kyle and I are very fortunate today. We have double trouble on with us. Miss Teresa Kitchens and Ms. Dennisse Bravo are here, and we're going to talk about all kinds of things. But first, I just wanted to welcome you guys and thank you for coming on with us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. This will be fun.
It will.
Yeah, I think so. So it's definitely the first time that we've had – well, no, it isn't actually.
It's the first time we've had 4 separate screens.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
The guys from Glovebox sat next to each other when they were talking. So I'll do my best to be the chaos coordinator. My wife actually has a T-shirt that says chaos coordinator. I think she's trying to send me a message. So why don't we start with you, Dennisse? Talk a little bit about sort of where you came from, how you got into the insurance industry. We find that like 90% of the people we talk to had no interest in getting into the insurance industry or had ever even thought about it prior. So tell us your story.
All right. So I actually came on board when my now father-in-law, started an agency. So he was a captive agent and he came to me. I was a week out of college and he said, listen, I need a year of your life, just 1 year where you type up and you teach me how to use the computer so I can sell some insurance. And I said, I will give you 1 year. And at the end of that year, I'm out of here and I'm going to go and finish my master's. And, that was 20 years ago. And
what were you going to get your master's in?
Psychology. I have a degree in psychology, one in Spanish linguistics and one in Portuguese studies. So it just was kind of one of those things where I still get to use all of it, but not quite in the same way.
Can you speak Portuguese?
I can. I really can. It's been a hot minute since I get to use it. Obviously, in Tucson, there's not a ton of Portuguese speaking going on, but Spanish, pretty damn.
Right. It's interesting to me because I'm a big time UFC fan. So I always like it when they interview the Brazilian fighters after the fight. And like, it's a 5-word question, but it's like a whole paragraph worth of Portuguese to translate it. It blows my mind. It seems like there's so much more that goes into saying something. I always wonder how it actually translates.
It's the cadence and how they speak. It's almost like a song. That's the best explanation I can come up with. And when you learn the language, you figure out when you speak with somebody, whether they're part of like northern Brazil or southern Brazil. It's really interesting. So
this is reminding me of a scene from Austin Powers where he's speaking some other language and they ask him this question and it's like this crazy long 2-minute answer for like 3 words.
Exactly.
Right. No. So one thing that I found interesting is not only do people not intend on getting into the industry that we've been interviewing, but most of them have come from captive agencies.
Yeah, I was going to say I've met probably one person, and it was just in the last 3 months that they started as an independent. Most of them came from some sort of captive world and then moved over. Almost as if we didn't know that there were better ways to do things.
It's interesting, though, because I don't know that that's a bad way to go. right? I mean,
No,
I can
I'm not
tell
saying
you,
that it is. I just found
yeah,
it. I found it interesting.
I just look at it, from my perspective, when I was younger and was working for companies that already had all their training programs, all their infrastructure, everything. My job was much easier than it is today.
Right.
When we launched, when I launched Scratch in 2016, there was nothing. And, when Kyle came on board in 2018, there wasn't much more, I mean, and so it's tough because for me, it's easier to execute when all of the boundaries and all of the rules and everything are in place versus having to actually create all of the boundaries and all of the rules. And
I remember sitting there asking you, like once I had gotten licensed, I'm ready to hit the ground running now. I'm like, all right, so what do I need to do? like I know I need to go out and sell, but like, what should I be doing? Like, am I doing enough? Like, you'd always tell me that I'm doing fine and everything, but just like, I remember wanting to have, because I came from, my two previous jobs were very structured, like very regimented, daily activities. And it was just, a completely new world. And I had to kind of create it on my own with David's help. So,
but I mean, I would say that we've done pretty good over, over the last 2 years since you've been in, as far as systems and processes and all that
without
stuff.
A doubt.
I'm
talking May of 2018.
Yeah, no. We had some people related issues, but I mean, we didn't have anything. And truthfully, we brought Kyle on. I wasn't ready to hire a producer. I really didn't need one, to be honest with you. I was doing okay on my own. I was actually doing really good on my own and would have been fine, but the opportunity to presented itself to me. And I'm always have been of the notion that I'm not going to hire when I need people. I'm going to hire people that I want, and you don't get stuck that way. So, well, that's interesting. You would probably not, Kyle might guess, because I think he's heard me say it before, but you wouldn't know what my minor was in college unless I told you.
What was it?
What do you
Opera.
think?
I'm going for opera.
It wasn't opera, but it was almost as weird. It was actually Japanese.
No
way.
Did not know that. No.
So here's a fun fact.
Japanese?
Listen, when you hear the logic behind it, you'll understand. When I started college,
well, I'm sure there's a reason. There's never not a reason.
All of the economy and everything was in Japan. Like, all of the manufacturing jobs were going over there. So if you were going to have a bright future, you needed to understand Japanese culture and all of this other stuff. Unfortunately, I took the Tommy Boy plan for college, and by the time I actually finished, the economy had shifted to China, and it wasn't even relevant anymore. So here I am walking around with a minor in Japanese that is absolutely useless to me at this point.
So you will appreciate then the fact that I wanted to have just a psychology degree. And my father said, you were born and raised in Mexico. You will get a Spanish linguistics degree. If nothing else, I know you won't fail out of college, because you better at least be able to get that one accomplished. So, and then he said, you got to do one more language. And I don't know, Brazilian boys were really cute.
Why is he obsessed with languages? Like, my goodness.
I think it's because you can adapt. That was the thought process. So
definitely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I'll give him some credit. I'm pretty sure it comes in useful to you now, right?
Yes.
It would definitely be useful in Arizona. I'm sure it would be useful in Texas, and I definitely know it would be useful here. Teresa, what's your story? What's your backstory?
So I've got a backward story that's very familiar. So my dad had an Allstate agency, and back in Texas, back in the mold crisis, back about 20 years ago, he couldn't write homeowners insurance. State Farm stopped writing, farmers stopped writing, all these captives stopped writing insurance, and Allstate only took the very best of the best, no claims, perfect credit, all that. And he was only about 3 years in, so he was making enough, but not enough, kind of in that space. So he was saying he really wanted to go independent. I, on the other hand, have an elementary education degree. I actually taught 5th grade English, and I was a stay-at-home mom for 9 years. So at this point, I was a stay-at-home mom, and my mom had actually passed away about 5 years before. So, my dad was my project. He was my person I needed to take care of. And he looked at me one day and he goes, so I'm kind of thinking about opening up an independent agency. And I went, that sounds really cool. And he goes, but I got this little non-compete thing going on. And I was like, well, okay, And he goes, so here's the plan. I was like, okay.
He already had the plan, right?
He already had the plan, right? So he was like, we're going to put your name on the contract, but I'll be doing everything. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. No big deal. And he goes, my youngest was 3 at that time. And he said, you can put Kaylee, your daughter, into Mom's Day Out. Just do it during Mom's Day Out hours, like 10 to 2. Don't worry about this. This is going to be easy. And I was like, okay, I can do that, and I totally expected to be able to go back to teaching at one point. But, life just had a different plan. And my dad stayed at Allstate for a few years. We opened up another business simultaneously that was more of a computer product, and that took off. And so I kind of ran the computer product for a little bit, and he pretty much ran the agency for a little bit. And just the technology was very, very challenging. So we really didn't grow very much over the course of the first 10 years in business. But then we ended up shutting down the other technology business, and I re-engaged with the agency. And I have a dream of more of a business than an agent in a CSR platform type of model. So we've been able to grow quite substantially. And I've had a really, really great time. I can't even imagine going back to teaching at this point. But I loved being a teacher. I loved being a stay-at-home mom. And I love insurance. It's really weird. But I got in on the back door, and, I've been able to have a lot of fun in the process.
So my good friend Vonda Copeland was a teacher too, and I'm interested in knowing how much do you think that translates to what you're doing today? I have to believe that some of that skill set helps you.
Oh, 110%. Because, we say that, as an advisor, right, we're educating, we're teaching, right? And we have to be able to relate to people wherever they are, no matter if people have no idea what the word liability means versus if they understand and they've ever actually looked at a policy, right? So everybody comes to us at a completely different level, whether or not they bring on teenagers and they're shocked about what's going on with their rates, if they expand their business into maybe a different area, and all of a sudden it totally changes everything with their commercial policy. But that's what we are, is we're educators overall. And so with that, we're protectors and educators. And just like I tried to protect those little 5th graders from themselves and the girls from the boys, because the boys were a little bit crazy in 5th grade, but the girls, boys kind of have no idea, but the girls are kind of, over here kind of thinking that the boys are cute, but the boys are still kind of doing their own thing. Same thing in insurance, right? We talk about carriers. We talk about all of our clients. You got to kind of corral them and make them feel loved and protect them from themselves sometimes, So it's worked out really, really well. And then I really enjoyed being able to do a little bit more on the end of just like speaking, doing other things in the insurance industry as well. And that's been a real joy for me as well.
It's interesting because I have a theory on most things in life, and my theory on things as it relates to insurance and sales is really pretty simple. If you can take the time to just give people the reason why behind everything you're explaining to them, you're going to beat almost all of your competition, because everybody's trying to hit it and quit it, right? They just want to get in, do what they need to do to get a deal done and be out. Whereas if you take the time to explain to people why you're making the recommendations that you're making, aside from the fact that you're a highly trained professional who's been doing it for a long time, it's a really easy way to write business, honestly.
Well, they look at you
and being patient too, right? Because I can't necessarily always be really, really patient. But if I know that I'm going to be in a sales conversation, or I know the person that I'm calling or is calling me on the phone is calling for that reason, I immediately program myself to get there. And that's one of the things I always do my best to do, is just make sure people understand the reason why.
Well, they look at you as that advisor versus that, insurance salesperson that we always talk about on here. And I mean, there's clients that I have that call me and ask me questions about what they should do before they do this next step of their business. And it's not may not have anything to do with insurance. And I think that's how you develop those lasting relationships.
I agree. So Denisse, let's switch back to you for a second. Talk a little bit about your agency. What's your mix look like? I mean, what kind of business are you writing and all of that?
We are very different from most folks. We do a huge chunk of group health insurance.
Oh, really? Good.
Care business. And, a small chunk of individual because that has shifted. And so really our property and casualty business is now significantly smaller compared to our group health and life business.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's been a huge thing. My husband and his mom ran an agency on their own, and we were able to merge both the property casualty and the life and health sides together. So when I have a client, we usually take care of their homes, their auto, their commercial business, their group health insurance, their Medicare for their parents. I mean, when we get one person, we are getting them, their business, and their parents' business all at once. So it's very, very different in that way. It definitely makes for an interesting time management schedule because October, November, December is where we are just absolutely bananas and involved on how things look. Now, of course, this year we're going to be shifting significantly because pretty much our entire Medicare book of business, those are folks that we see them once a year. And this year, it's really interesting to start having those conversations with them right now because they kind of running joke right now is that they'll ask me to go on live or do some sort of Zoom meeting with them. They want to look at a picture of my son to see how tall he has gotten. That's really why they were coming to the office to begin with. And they want to make sure they go, Dennisse, am I taken care of? And I go, yes, you are. And they go, okay, that's all I need. So it's completely shifted exactly what Teresa was saying. We've educated them enough to tell them, like, here are the pitfalls. Here are the things that we're going to be looking out for. And when we place someone in a piece of business, we tell them we're not placing you in the most affordable piece of business. We're placing you where you're meant to be. So the only reason why we're going to pull you out of that piece of business is if they no longer serve what your purpose was.
And I'll tell you what, it is such a different conversation on the benefits side than it is in P&C because you're not just affecting the bottom line for the employer. You're affecting the culture of the organization. You could have an effect on the employee and their family and all of the other things. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's especially with the way some of these plans have gotten with regard to high deductibles. I mean, they put the high and high deductible at this point. Good grief. I mean, people, and we see it all the time because it's a massive tool for recruiting and retaining talent. The people who get it are the ones that have thriving businesses, and the ones who don't are just, it's like a freaking merry-go-round, revolving door constantly of turnover because of how the benefits programs work.
And that's the interesting part out of what we have done for years. While the ACA made a lot of shifts into the individual packets of the world, it also allowed us to really shore up our relationships with those business owners, where we just said, hey, listen, here's where the wave is coming. We knew that there was going to be a change in 2016. We just knew that was coming. So in 2014, we told them, we're going to make this change. And when everyone else is busy just losing their ever-living mind, you will be handled next. And that's exactly how it worked for us. So now as we're seeing yet another shift that's coming because, not to get into a lot of the pandemic world, but one of the first things that they did is that they said, we're going to give free COVID testing. That was one of the first things that we saw. Folks, someone's paying for that COVID test, and that's you at your renewal, period. End the story. Someone's paying for those, and that's you. Right. And having those conversations 3 months ago made it for a much easier transition for folks that we're talking to them about what their benefits are going to be a year from now. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would be interested in hearing what people have to talk about as you go through renewals this year. I mean, I'm sure you're already having some of those conversations, but it would just be interesting to sort of get the general vibe of people for benefits and everything else. I happen to believe, and I've been on record as saying this, we don't do benefits in our agency. We have a joint venture that we refer it out to somebody that we share space with at the aisle office Kyle's at. Mm-hmm. And that's all he does. But I think that if you are a PNC agent and you're out there calling on business owners, you should definitely be having the buy-sell agreement conversation with them immediately. Or key man, right? And I'm not necessarily saying that you need to prey on the fear of what COVID has done, but there's a lot of guys out there that are partners in business and they just dodged a major bullet so far. And, I've been pretty successful. I don't ever say, hey, this is the idea I have, I think I'm going to do. I always make sure it works before I ever talk about it to other people. And I mean, I've been pretty successful at just going back to business owners and having that specific conversation around buy sell over the course of the last couple of months. And it's a great incremental way to make money in the agency. You're just asking a question. I don't think that a lot of PNC people think about that. But again, going back to being an advisor versus a salesman, that's a normal question that I ask when I engage with somebody. Where I fall off is because I'm not in the life and health, playground every day. I forget 4 years from then to say, hey, by the way, have you taken a look at your buy sell? You guys are doing quadruple the revenue you were originally doing. And so I've made it a focused effort to go back and talk to some of those. And I mean, I just picked up one that's two $5 million term policies to fund a buy sell. I'm like, that's just free money because I asked the question, and it's serious coin. It's not like anything to blow off. So it'll be, I think people's thoughts are really going to shift a lot. And I would like to think that employers are going to make a better, not that all employers are bad. Benefits are an expense. It's usually the second biggest expense aside from payroll on somebody's financials. They don't need to be cheap with it. I'm really hoping people will step back and actually make educated decisions instead of looking at price this year.
And I think we are seeing that. I think that one of the biggest shifts that we have seen, or at least the clients that we have been blessed to take care of for years, they will say things. Because there are other companies that come on board and they'll say, well, I think I can do a better job. And they'll say, no, Bravo Insurance Solutions has been taking care of us for the last 34 years. They haven't failed us at any point. They're not going to fail us now. And what that meant, or what that has meant, is that things have shifted and we have shifted with them. We went from those when they were trying to make payroll, right? And those hard times to the engagement of, hey, now we've hired our 10th employee, to we're in our 50th employee year. Now we need to look at our IRA. See, there's the Spanish speaking in me coming out. Those shifts definitely have made us be able to carry that legacy with our clients. And I don't see that changing now. And I do believe that we had kind of a mass exodus on the life and health side, where just agents just called it quits. They said, this is not the job for me. And I was very glad, because those of us that have been completely passionate about them, we've grown. And those that were doing a disservice walked out of the agencies. And that's a great thing for us. It really has been. So it shifts the way that we do business. It definitely makes for a very interesting fourth quarter, but game on. That's what we're here for, right? So it's fun.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, Teresa, you're up. What's your story? Talk about your agency a little bit. I'm interested in hearing the differences.
So we are more of what I would call just, your traditional agency. We just mainly do auto, homes, and commercial. We don't do a lot of large commercial. We're just really starting to dabble in commercial since like I mentioned, my background was that I literally did not even have a license when I signed on with the agency. And I would literally call my dad and say, what is this E&O thing that we're supposed to have? And he would go, I don't know. I'll take care of all that. And I would say, what is this Accord one? What number is this? And he was like, I don't know. I don't have any clue. If Google wasn't around, I would have just been sunk. But, luckily, we fought our way through it, but we've kind of stuck with what we knew and wanted to be able to make that transition. And like I said, we had 2 businesses going there for a little while, so we kind of played it safe. So just in the past few years, we've been trying to go a little bit more into some commercial insurance, but again, without having, and you guys talked earlier, and this is so important in the insurance space. So important is that when we go independent, if we have not had that background, like my dad had been with Allstate, but I had never been through any formal training in sales. I was a teacher, right? We didn't have to sell anybody anything in school. It was discipline, right? It was get in there and kick your butt, right? But the reality is that trying to figure out sales and marketing and how to be able to run an agency and having zero business background and everything. And I would get a little bit frustrated at times because I would sit back and I'd approach an idea with my dad. I'd have like 6 options, right? And he would go, those sound great. And I would be like,
which one?
Exactly. Or he'd say, let me think about it. Let's have lunch next week. And I'd be like, okay, why is it going to take a week? And then he'd go, those are great ideas. And that's not the point.
He sounds awesome.
Yeah, he's huge. So, I finally got to the point where, and I think every agency owner gets to this point, and I think we get into the business and we get to what I call kind of a balls to the walls kind of moment. You got to make it work. This is no longer playtime. This is no longer trying out new things. This is no longer an experiment. You gotta bring in the revenue and you gotta make it work. And that's kind of where we got to. And we really, instead of having 5 different ways to do things, we just had to choose one. And then we had to work that path and then choose the next one and then work that path and then choose the next one. And I'm so ADD, I have a hard time. I want to go back and rework the 3 steps I've already accomplished to try to make them more efficient. And I can't do that. You got to keep on. So we've really stuck in the personal lines end of things. We have about a 85% book right now in that arena. Hopefully here soon it'll be a little bit more 80 because we have some good stuff coming down the road. But we've worked really, really well with a really great team. The last 2.5 years, I've really taken us and restructured us a little bit more into the area of being able to be more efficient with virtual assistants, being able to bring on account managers, being able to let our producers sell rather than doing a lot of the servicing that they were doing. And that mental shift has been very difficult to be able to have people release things, but it's been good. And we've been very, very blessed, and I wouldn't do it any other way. So we're in the process now of growth. We kind of went back and stopped and resituated, I think, for a little bit. And now we're at the point where we're just really ready to be able to escalate and move forward.
So I think it's funny because you brought up you made the comment about what's E&O or what's an E&O.
Yeah.
I look back and there's times I'm so thankful that I didn't get caught with some of the stuff that had happened.
Seriously.
I'm not asking anybody to air their dirty laundry, on the airwaves or anything, but good grief. I think all of us have been there at some point or another where
I just think there's so many different opportunities for that to happen, especially, when you're new and have no idea what's going on. That's why I always ask you a million questions.
Yeah, I know. And that's what's crazy. It just, there's always a building that could be left off or a vehicle that doesn't
Something
get added. And I'm looking
at just one minor thing, and it could just change everything for the other people, on the other side of the conversation. And I'm one of these people. I always believe that people dream at night based on what their fears are and what they worry about the most. So, that's where our dreams come in at night. So like my husband always thinks he's being attacked by something. That's his MO. So like he's fighting polar bears and he's been surrounded by packs of dogs. And he's even been on the front line of football games before. Literally, before we got married, I walked in and he had this huge knot on his head. And I was like, what happened to you? He evidently got in a full football stance, thinking he was on the front lines of an old, high school football, whatever, college football. And he propelled himself into the headboard of the bed just because he's such an active dreamer, right?
How did you not wake up for this?
Well, I was not there. This was before we got married, but I walked in. I was like, what is that thing on your head? So now I'm here to protect him. But awesome. What I do
now, he's fine.
I know we're all kind of crazy, but what I do is I wake up in the middle of the night worried if somebody paid their bill, right? And that's the weirdest, most stupid thing. Did I add that car? Did we send off all that paperwork? And I know I've done it, right? I know I've done it. I know my team has done it, but I worry about letting people down. And that is my biggest fear in life, is letting people down. And that's what that's what wakes me up in the middle of the night. So, being in the insurance industry, I agree with you. We have to kind of take those things into consideration whenever we choose to be in this industry.
Teresa, you just said something that I find really interesting, because I fired a client, a prospect yesterday, and it's because I caught them in a lie, and pretty big lie. So I just said, ma'am, I have to tell you, I want to be able to sleep well at night. And the only way I do that is by knowing I took care of you.
Yeah.
The only way I can do that is by knowing that you didn't lie to me. But now we've started a relationship where the first thing you said to me was a lie. And so now I know I won't be able to sleep at night. And therefore, we're just not a good match.
Yeah.
I wish you the best of luck. And that has been, I talk about being able to sleep at night forever. And I said, it's important to me. And I knew I was going to worry about whether or not she was telling me the truth for the rest of our relationship.
Right.
Nobody got that.
Let me tell you who I caught in a lie.
Who?
The BMW dealership.
Yeah.
Let me tell you how I caught him.
Yeah.
Let me tell you how I caught him. I used their own technology against them. They thought they didn't give me credit, right? So one of the first things they do is when you drop your car off at the dealership, they do a walk around with an iPad or something, whatever their device is, to show you like all of the blemishes that are on your vehicle so that you don't blame them for it or whatever. Well, as all of this stuff is going on, I took it in for engine issues. I was told that they now need to have me spend a couple $1,000s to fix the fact that it's riding low in the back, because there's these two modules that are under the back part of the car.
That's just the dead body in the trunk. Don't worry about it.
That had been sitting there wet, and they got corroded. And so the car's suspension quit, and it was basically sitting on the back tires, right? And so I waited, and the guy called me, and literally it's like a week in between calls. He called me a week and a half ago on a Friday afternoon, and it was the first time my wife had the pleasure of hearing the discourse between the two of us, because it was over the car speakers. And I hung up the phone, and she said, I don't even know how that guy functions in the real world. And like, this is supposed to be an educated person. But anyhow, so he tells me all these things are going to have to do. I said, I have a problem. I said, maybe it's because I like work in claims and things for a living, but you've told me all of the things you want to do to fix my car, but you haven't told me you've identified the root cause of the issue. And he said, I don't understand. I said, well, if there's water that are sitting in the box that these modules sit in, where's it coming from? And how can we guarantee it's not going to happen again? Like, why would I spend $2,000 to have you put 2 new modules in if it's going to turn around and short those out in another week? Right. And so he's like, well, this is a long-term problem, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, there's no video of any corrosion, no video of the parts they've taken out, no video of my allegedly wet trunk. And I went back and looked at the walk-around video and sent them screenshots today that show that my car clearly was not riding low when I dropped it off to them. So it's going to be interesting to see how this thing works out. But I'm with you, Denisse. I'm not a fan of the liar. Not a fan.
Well, we're in that protection industry, right? I mean, we're here to be able to help people move forward. And I always, whenever I drop my kids off at school or whatever, I always had this thing. I always say, bye guys, have a great day, make the world safe for democracy. And that's my little tagline. My kids will say that all the time. I was always like, make the world safe for democracy. That's what we're doing today, right? Well, I mean, that's what we do in insurance, is we make the world safer, right? And that's actually I was actually talking to a friend the other day, and she goes, that's your insurance, like your mission statement. She goes, that's where you need to take your mission statement. And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, making the world safer, one policy at a time. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's genius, because that's what we do. We make the world safer, one policy at a time. And if we start with bad information up front, it's only downhill from there.
Well, and they're the one that's going to come back and tell you did something wrong anyhow.
Right. And get
so
the lawyers.
So listen, you guys are doing some cool stuff. I know you have your own podcast. Why don't you talk about that for a little bit so that anybody that's listening that has an interest in tuning in knows where to find you. And then I want to talk about what you're doing with your subgroup of IAOA, because I think that's going to be a really powerful group you guys have started.
Absolutely. Well, back at Innovation 2020, I had actually met Denisse, And she had actually I had spoke on the stage. And so, I don't know, there was something about her energy that was just like, oh my gosh, we're soul sisters. So we actually connected and we said, hey, we want to connect after this too. But I also connected with other women there at the Innovation 20. And we talked about how running an agency is just different for women. And it's not good or bad. It's not right or wrong. It's just, there are just certain conversations, certain way that we speak to each other, certain ways that we communicate with our team, certain challenges that we have with our families and even with our clients that are unique to a woman. And so I had multiple conversations in that round. And I was talking to another friend of mine, Brooke, and she was like, oh my gosh, you should have a podcast about this because it's a really, really relevant conversation. And we got into a conversation also about how women in insurance, not just as agency owners, but women in insurance tend to take more of a servant-oriented role, which is a wonderful thing. But why is it that we're not agency owners? Why is it that we're not necessarily as many in the corporate world? So what I wanted to do is I started a podcast called Power Women in Insurance. And what we want to do is we want to show all aspects of insurance, not just agency ownership, not just the roles of an agency. We're also interviewing, I have next week, I actually have an area manager with Liberty Mutual that's going to be coming on with us. I've actually interviewed last couple weeks ago a lady who has a risk management degree, and she is working with Marsh with cyber insurance right now. And just the challenges and the joys that she's had watching that industry, because, the cyber area is quite a baby aspect of the insurance industry. And watching these women really take off and really have found their own careers in an industry is really, really inspiring. Hearing how they manage their families, hearing how they manage their teams, hearing how they have acquired their positions and how they deal with their other people that work for them and with them is something that I think a lot of women can benefit from. We've really focused a lot on the women of IAOA, just because that's my circle of influence. But yet at the same point, we're really being able to branch out into other areas as well. And I'm super excited about being able to have people just send me messages. Hey, this person's on fire right now. You really need to interview them. And I really want to make sure that we really celebrate all women in insurance. So even if it's an account manager or a receptionist, even if it's somebody who works customer service for a carrier, if they can find the podcast and say, you know what, that sounds amazing, whatever that is, we want to encourage more women to step up and find their career in the insurance industry. So that's called the Power Women in Insurance. It's on iTunes. We also have a Facebook page if people want to go and get updates every week as well.
Very cool.
So you said something that I'm going to drill down on. I can't promise you that we're not going to drive change today, because I know how men are wired and they always want to believe what they want to believe. But you said that
I don't believe that.
Yeah, I know. It comes back to the liberal arts education and the Japanese minor, I guess. I don't. But you talked about the unique challenges that women face. What would you say? It actually was on my list of questions to talk about anyhow, so I'm glad you brought it up. What would you say the biggest challenges, and I'll let both of you answer the same question, but what would you say the biggest challenges that you faced? And no holds barred. I'm interested in hearing, like, give me the real stuff that you're dealing with, because I think that part of the issues that you run into when there's inequality in any situation, regardless of whether it's race, gender, economic, otherwise, you have to table what the issue is first and look at it and identify what it is before you can come up with a solution. And I really think that a lot of the times, like, I was absolutely, and I don't look, I'm a pretty forward-thinking person. I don't have preconceived notions about people or anything else. I have a belief structure, but I don't go into a conversation that way. When I saw the thread in IAOA last week or the week before about how clients were, to me, that's something I absolutely never would have even thought existed. Right.
All right.
What was it?
Yeah, shame on me for not knowing. Shame on me for not knowing. Right. But
even networking events and stuff, they get kind of crazy. I mean, and not everybody thinks that way.
Kyle, you look confused. So here's what
I just missed what he said. I didn't.
Well,
hear.
yeah, he's not. You're not in IAOA, so you wouldn't
Right.
know.
stand-up women are, and I'm going to hit that first question that you asked. It's and what is the biggest problem? Okay, women are expected to work like they don't have children, and mothers are supposed to act like they don't work.
Mm-hmm.
In a nutshell, that's what the difference is.
What do you think causes that? Because let me tell you, that hits close to home to me. And the reason why is because I have a very successful wife, has an awesome job. You know, she doesn't need me for anything really.
Same.
You know, but we're both, you know, Kyle and I are both actually kind of in the same boat. Our wives make good money, have good jobs. You know, just we both married up. We'll leave it at that. But I get in a conversation with my mother, who was a stay-at-home mom, and her comment was, it's just different when you're this age, David. When you were in my generation, you were expected to stay home. You weren't allowed to work, but at the same time, that's usually a conversation around why I'm keeping all 4 kids while my wife is traveling. So it's almost like my mom wanted to work, but it was societal, right? Like you were expected to be a stay-at-home mom in the Midwest in the early 70s, you know, when I was born. But now that my wife is out actually working, it's almost like, well, I didn't have that that's a luxury, right? It's a luxury that you have a job and you can go out and travel and make money and do all of these things. Never mind you that we have a special needs son who has an extremely tight bond with my wife, and she has to separate from him for a week at a time sometimes. You know, I think it's really, really, I don't know what forms people's thought process around that. What's your insight to that? Why would you think that? Because I don't know. I just don't think that way. I can't get my head around it. Like I have the lady who basically runs commercial lines for us works from 7 to 2:30 every day. She couldn't get a job at any other agency around because they want her to work from 9 to 5 or 8 to 4:30 or 5 or whatever. And so when I talked to her skill set was right. She said, well, I'm going to have to tell you what the big problem is going to be. And she said, I have to work from 7 to 2:30 every day because I need to be there to take care of the kids. And I'm like, why is that a problem? I don't care. You get here at 7 o'clock. That's awesome. I've got somebody else that comes in around lunchtime that can at least answer the phones or whatever in the office. It's not like people are burning up the phones, you know, to talk to us or whatever. But I just think it's interesting because she thought that was automatically going to be a problem. And that never even entered my mind.
Well, I think from my perspective, and I was a stay-at-home mom for a long time. I grew up in a family where I was expected that when I had children that I would be a stay-at-home mom. I mean, that was my mother's expectation of me in the world, and that was just kind of I'm not going to use the word culture because I don't really have this like special culture or anything. Just the deep South Baptist woman that I was raised to be, right? So I think that, you know, if we just look at the role of a man and a woman, let's just really break it down into really, really nuts and bolts, right? You guys have kids. When you have kids, it's that, you know, sometimes men are incredibly nurturing. They have done a fabulous job. And I think there have been so many men that are much more involved in their children's lives and in their homes, doing laundry, sweeping. My mom used to say, marry a man with a college degree so he'll vacuum. And I was like, why does it matter if he has a college degree if he'll vacuum? She said, because he's not exhausted when he comes home. And I think that is a really big thing, is that now we have a little bit of a different culture to where men are much more involved in the home structure, a lot more cooking dinner, making, you know, getting the laundry done, hanging things up than they were 25 years ago. But at the same point, not that necessarily works is part of the conversation today. We're still battling a lot of that because of the cultures we were all raised in. But yet, even with that, I do think that even if you just look at the nature of a man and a woman, right? When you have a kid specifically, there are very different ways that we approach that kid. Very, very different. And if we can just take that one example just that one example on how different a man is from a woman and how they just approach parenting, you can see a huge difference between the sexes. And that is every single aspect of life. The way that we approach our teams is different because we approach them different from a man, in the same way that we approach our children different. Not that our teams are children, but we take things in a different way emotionally. We want to communicate a little bit differently. Maybe we want to be able to we give them too many chances, right? Maybe we struggle emotionally with the fact that being home at 6:30 or 7 and somebody else is making dinner. I struggle with that. Sometimes I have the most wonderful husband on the planet, but when he goes, I'll make dinner, I feel like somehow I failed. And I shouldn't feel that way, but it's my cultural, the way that I was raised. And at this point, I'm even an empty nester. My kids are 28, 27 and 21. And being at home, I find that I'm bored. I find that I want to work more. I open up my computer 10 times more now because I'm bored on a Saturday afternoon. Not that my husband isn't wonderful and amazing. It's just while he's watching sports, I might as well just work. And he looks at me and he goes, why are you always working? I'm going, what else is there to do? As a woman, if we have downtime, we're doing laundry, we're doing dishes, we're cleaning up, we're picking up toys, we're doing these things with the kids. And the reality is we're so, I think, ingrained in the fact that we have to do in so many ways, but we approach doing in so many different ways than a man does. And I think that alone, if we just look at the core of how we just approach our families, I think we can see, just if we extend that conversation out, how it would extend out to the other areas, including running a business.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, we've got a really good system, I guess, at our house. Like that's what I'm hearing is that because my wife and I basically split like the dinner responsibilities and childcare and running them around, and we know that up front. I've got it pretty good. I would hate. Look, I'll tell you right now, if I'm not supposed to go home and take care of dinner tonight, and I've been up since 4:00 this morning, and I walk in the house at 6:00, and all of a sudden I'm expected to cook dinner in addition to all of that, not going to be a happy camper at all. And so I think that's what I take out of Dennise's comment, right? That you're expected to act like you don't work. Like you're not allowed to be tired at the end of the day and come home. You're expected just to hit it like you had been home all day as a stay-at-home parent. Not that that's not tiring in its own right. I'd rather be at work all day than at home all day sometimes because our house is wild. It's just what it is. It's literally a white knuckle ride every day, but I wouldn't trade it for anything because I know that when I go home tonight, our meals are planned. I know what my responsibilities are. I know what my wife's are. And, we're going to end up getting everything done, get the kids to bed in one piece, hopefully, and go to bed and start it over again tomorrow. But, I mean, what a horrible feeling that would be to work all day and feel like it's just completely –
like you're failing from either personally or in business, that there's no win in that particular case.
That's crazy. And that shouldn't be. I hate that that people feel that way.
Well, I mean, have you ever been asked to smile more?
Have I?
Smile more so you're more approachable.
Yeah.
You know what? Honestly, yes, I have.
Oh, I will tell you that a woman is asked to smile.
Yeah, and I will tell you why. It's because I'm big.
Yeah. Oh, me, it's because I'm a dick. That's
But no, I mean,
smile. You're more approachable, and then now I'm more approachable. And hey, can I have your cell phone number? No, here's my work number. No, don't be a bitch because really, I want to call you on your cell phone. Aren't we friends now? Shouldn't I be able to approach you at 8:00 at night on a Saturday after I had a few drinks? That's a slippery slope that a woman sees.
Well, and it's crazy. Like I like, to me, if I was that person's significant other, or if that person wasn't, like, I'm dealing with a situation in the agency right now where a client, or it's a complicated story, client / prospect, it's kind of half and half, sent something extremely inappropriate to one of the ladies who works with me. And it got back to me. And so I said, all I'm going to ask you to do is reply back and say, apparently this is the wrong attachment that you sent me. Please forward me the supplemental application that I originally requested. And I said, I'm not telling you that I'm brushing this under the mat. I want to see what the response is. I said, but you need to understand, regardless of what it is, before he's ever allowed to talk to you again, he has to go through me, because I'm not going to put up with that. Mistake or not a mistake, this person is in a business that requires them to be thorough. And what transpired was not indicative that this person was being thorough in what they were doing. So I'll deal with it. But I just want to, she replied back, hasn't heard from the guy in a week and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right. And that's not uncommon. That's not uncommon. I mean, if we get out, we network, we go to, all these like happy hours with realtors or whoever your primary market is. I mean, I'm not a spring chicken, don't get me wrong, but I mean, I've been in this industry for 20 years, right? So when I started, I was 29 years old. And actually, no, I'm going to be 47. Oh, I am 47, and we're going on 20 years in January. So I was 27 years old, right? So the math, sorry, I'm just like, my head, I'm not that old. Anyway, sorry, in my head, I'm still like 32. So anyway, but when I started, I was 27 years old, and I can tell you, I remember going to Keller Williams open houses in the foyer of this huge, branch, and they had this chocolate fountain, and there was all this food, and we were all mingling, and this person was like, hey, let me walk you out to your car real quick. It's not safe for somebody to walk out to their car at 10 o'clock at night by themselves. I'm like, okay, no problem. That sounds great. Well, on the way out, some very inappropriate comments and so forth were made. And I got married at 19. I had my first kid at 19. I had no idea how to be able to deal with that. I had no clue. That was not the world I came from. And, and now, especially with text messaging and, instant messenger on our sites, there's so many other ways, I think, for people to be inappropriate. And unfortunately, especially electronically, people, I don't know why, are so much more inappropriate electronically than they might have been in person. But if we had those challenges 20 years ago in person at a happy hour, that stuff's going on 10 times more in electronic space, and we just can't have it.
I'll tell you what I'm hearing is that my wife is not telling me the whole story about what she deals with, and she's not doing it because she knows I'll go knock somebody out. I mean, that's basically what I'm translating here.
And it also means that I want you to understand that there's also this time in which you don't even want to repeat the disgusting things that we are faced with. And that's the truth. There are so many times, hey, I carry a gun and I'm working on my black belt in karate. And if you still believe that you want to come and try to put me on a corner, which has happened, there's a very specific response to that now. But
Denise says, come get some.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. She's like, you try it, buddy. You try it.
But that's the truth. That's the reality. And that's the part out of it that really, it's almost, I don't want to sound like, oh, poor us, poor women, were victimized by it.
Not at all.
I don't think you sound that way at all.
But it is a matter of we are exposed to certain pressures that our counterparts are not. That's it.
But even in that conversation, I think, Denise, we've seen these conversations. And one thing that we see in the women of IAOA group that we're so proud of is that we have women that literally say, I would never have this conversation in the main group, that they would never feel comfortable having these conversations, that they maybe, I run a team. I've had men and women work for me over the years. And I have women sometimes that come on in and they think it's okay to sit in my chair and gossip with me and somehow want to chit chat about their day. And I'm like, no, we're working. You got to get back out there. We have other challenges. I mean, the whole sexual harassment thing, inappropriateness, absolutely. But I'll say that even beyond that, I mean, women even sometimes think of women not necessarily as their boss. They think they can go on in and talk about all their problems. You're your bestie buddy. We have to keep a little bit more of a distance because women are nurturing and women are caring. And sometimes people take that for granted. And people sometimes take different advantage of a woman than they do from a man. Even as an employee, they show up a little bit later. Maybe they think that they can get away with a little bit more. Maybe they think, oh, well, she went to go take care of her kid, so now I don't have to do what I need to do while I'm working. And then, sometimes, and I know men struggle with it too, but again, it's that caring, nurturing backbone that we have a little bit differently, that we struggle with the fact we got to walk in and put this person to the toe because they would never do that for a male boss. Never in a million years.
Or there's the other part. You have all of those women with all of those feelings, and then you have someone like me who have none of those feelings. I am straightforward, all business, all the time. It actually takes quite a while back. It's the running joke of, if you want a good girlfriend, call my husband. I'm not it.
I love that.
And it is. It's like I said, and I think we all see that. There's different responses.
Everybody's different.
As women business owners. But it's been a great group. The women of I.
Yeah, I want you to talk about the group a little bit, because I think that it's really important. What I heard out of that, which, men tend to listen to big groups of things and we take little things out of it that we hear. But what I heard from that is that women need a platform and a forum to be able to converse about things that they otherwise might not feel comfortable talking about. And I understand that, because, part of me, in a sick and twisted way, and I don't want this to sound wrong, I'm always waiting for that one jackass that says the absolute worst thing that could possibly come out of anybody's mouth. And I know it's coming. Like, if you were to go post in any larger forum, whether it be IAOA or even on your own page or whatever, that guy is coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
That is going to have a completely ridiculous viewpoint, and it's just going to turn into an absolute freak show. I think it's pretty cool that you guys have done that. And, I think that if I had to guess, there's probably men out there who think, oh, we should have a men of IAOA or whatever else. Well, you know what? Go start it then, if that's what you want to do. If you want to have a place where only men can talk, like, I just don't see that we face the types of issues that we just don't face them. They don't exist, in my opinion. Like, I'm sure there's outliers for everything, but talk about the group and kind of the purpose of it, because I think that it's something that I know this. The law of large numbers tells me that if I'm talking to two ladies that have been in the industry for 20 plus years and they're facing these issues, there's plenty of other people that are facing these issues, right? It's not limited to you. And so I think that you giving people a safe haven to communicate and just sort of air it out and get advice from other people is good. I also think having some experience and understanding what it's like to have to moderate a Facebook group, not necessarily sure that I would want to be the one that was breaking up some of the cat fights, but we
haven't had any. You know what? Honestly,
that's good.
This group is, honestly, it's powered by positivity. It really is. And I agree with you. When we first kind of got it going, Denisse and I had a conversation. We're like, okay, we've got to make sure this thing stays positive. We got to make sure this thing stays beautiful and that it stays positive, that it stays open, that it stays warm. There's not going to be any of this bashing of anything, period, of anything on any level. And we haven't had any of that. In fact, we have people literally probably every week that post on some post one way or another how much they love the group and how much it's a breath of fresh air. Not because we don't challenge each other, but because of the fact that it's such a positive space overall. And I think that's one of the overall resounding things that this group is really bringing to the table.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think also the fact that you're able to, you have a lot more manageable number from what I understand. How many members do you have in your group right now?
I'm sure Denisse can look officially, but I think we're up to like 400.
I knew you were bumping between 4 and 5. I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
if
I think
hit
we're like
5 yet
450 is what I'm thinking.
466 as of today.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
we can get
There
you.
you go.
We can get you to 500. You'll be at 500 long before
Absolutely.
this comes out. But
Well, we're also able, because it's a smaller group, to do some things like Denise and I were just gluttons for punishment. But one of the things we've done is we've done a happy hour that was by time zone. So what we did was from 4:30 to 5:30 in the Eastern time zone, we had happy hour. Then we went to 4:30 to 5:30 in Central, then 4:30 to 5:30 in Mountain, and then 4:30 to 5:30 in Pacific. And I was a doofus and posted the time wrong on one of the things. And so I actually went from 3:30 to anyway, so I added an extra hour on the Eastern time zone. But I've got to say, being able to connect with everybody, see them on a Zoom meeting, I walked out of there pumped up. I mean, I walked out of there just jazzed. It was as if I was at innovation almost, to some degree. And we had about 15 to 20 people per time zone. So it wasn't overwhelming, and we didn't really know how that would be. It was kind of an experiment up front. But literally, we have people all the time. This would be a great topic for a Zoom meeting. Let's do another happy hour Zoom meeting. And I mean, it was awesome. I was exhausted and my voice was completely gone after 3.5 hours, but it was amazing. I mean, and the energy was just awesome.
Great. It worked out great for me. So it was everything I needed and more. I think the one thing that I will say about the women of IAOA that I'm really loving is that they're not pulling punches. So
good.
One of them will come out and say, this is the ad that I'm working on. Tell me what's wrong with it. Not tell me why it's pretty. It's tell me what's wrong with it. Yeah. To see fellow women say, this is what I would do different. This is how I would change, and work together into then now turning it into this beautiful work of art that other women poured into. That's the exciting part out of it.
Well, I mean, and I thrive in that environment too, right? I don't want somebody blowing smoke. if I ask you a question, give me an honest answer. I'm not going to hold it against you. I came to you and asked you for your honest opinion. Yeah. And I give mine. I think sometimes that's one of the reasons why I've been encouraged to smile more, I guess, or whatever, because when somebody asks me a question, I'm going to tell you what I'm thinking, period. There's no candy coating. I don't have time to write flowery responses to questions. I'm going to tell you the answer and go on to the next thing on the list. But, that's good. I mean, I think that's great. I think collaboration is extremely important. I think that so many times we can get extremely adversarial for no reason whatsoever.
Yes.
Other than we just feel like being adversarial, and you don't need to do that. I mean, I'm probably generous with my time to a fault, but I tell anybody, look, if you have questions and you want to pick my brain, my calendar link's right here. If it's open, it's yours. If it's not, because it's already scheduled for something. And I looked across my calendar last week and in the week before and in this week again, and I probably have 3 to 4 hours out of my week, if not more, every single week, just from other people that I'm willing to help and collaborate with, that never would have gotten any kind of reasonable dialogue going if they posted in a forum somewhere, because you have too many different sizes, shapes, personalities. Look, diversity is great. Love it. Think we need all of it in there. But at the same time, when you ask a question, you never know who's answering it. You know what I mean? You don't know if it's a single man life agency or a 500 employee regional broker. You don't know. And so I think that you lose some of the authenticity of the collaboration when it's, most of the time it turns into chest beating and everything else, in my opinion.
Right. And, and that's exactly what it is. People love the smaller environment. People love the honesty. People love the encouragement, the challenging encouragement, right? The propelment forward. And I think everybody really takes it in a grain of love and acceptance. And with that, we also go back to, a lot of times we do go back to the main group and we post them both places to kind of see what the difference in some of those are, especially for some of our operations. I've definitely seen some of the posts that have been in both places. We've even had some people say, hey, I posted this in the main group. It got no responses and I have no idea what I'm going to do here. So let's post it here. And all of a sudden it had 25 responses. I think it's just a different environment. It's not wrong or right. And it's not anything. And, but it's just the point where people need to be fed where they feel comfortable. And it doesn't diminish anything else, but people need to feel that space. And that's what this has provided. And I think that's awesome. And I think that we're really going to be able to see a lot of the women in not just IAOA, but also women in the insurance space be able to step up, because we do need to make sure everybody feels like they have a voice and everybody feels like their contribution is really important.
I think what's going to be really, really cool for you guys to see, and we've been going for an hour and I want to respect your time, so we'll wrap up after I say this, but what's really going to be cool for you to see is the people that find you based on your podcast that over the years end up becoming agency owners as a result of following the things that you put out there, and it's empowered them to take things to the next level. So I'm excited to see that. I think that we need more power women in insurance. I shouldn't say that. Let me step back. I think we have plenty of power women in insurance. I think we need to make those people more visible and back them and empower them to do the things that they're fully capable of doing. And in many cases, better than guys. So fellas, they need to check yourself a little bit and listen to what we talked about today. I look at everything through the filter of, if I wouldn't say it to my little girl, I'm not going to say it to anybody else. And that makes it very easy for me to make sure I have good manners. So I hope everybody has enjoyed this episode. Denisse, Teresa, thank you so much. Kyle, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, you got it.
Thank you.
We appreciate having you guys on, and I look forward to watching this thing grow for you, and I wish you nothing but continued success.
Thank you. Thanks for your support. We appreciate that.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon, ladies. By the way, can't wait to do the artwork for this thumbnail. It's going to be awesome. You never know. You never know what's coming. I keep it a secret. Oh, no, I already got the screenshot, and I'm trying to figure out. Yeah, I'll post the screenshot. Teresa was in mid-explanation, but Denisse, you look like you have this smoldering look on your face, like you were really deep into – it's a good one.
Denisse,
but anyhow, absolutely. Well, listen, ladies, have a good one. Thank you again. Really appreciate it, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
See ya.
You've been listening to the Power Producers Podcast. You can follow Killing Commercial Insurance on Facebook and YouTube. And if you want to take your game to the next level, check out our book, The Extra 2 Minutes, and our website, killingcommercial.com.
Too many different sizes, shapes, personalities. Look, diversity is great. Love it. Think we need all of it in there. But at the same time, when you ask a question, you never know who's answering it. You know what I mean? You don't know if it's a single man life agency or a 500 employee regional broker. You know, you don't know. And so I think that you lose some of the authenticity of the collaboration when it's, most of the time it turns into chest beating and everything else, in my opinion.
Right. And, and that's exactly what it is. People love the smaller environment. People love the honesty. People love the encouragement, the challenging encouragement, right? The propelment forward. And I think everybody really takes it in a grain of love and acceptance. And with that, we also go back to, a lot of times we do go back to the main group and we post in both places to kind of see what the difference in some of those are, especially for some of our operations. I've definitely seen some of the posts that have been in both places. We've even had some people say, hey, I posted this in the main group. It got no responses and I have no idea what I'm going to do here. So let's post it here. And all of a sudden it had 25 responses. I think it's just a different environment. It's not wrong or right. And it's not anything. And, but it's just the point where people need to be fed where they feel comfortable. And it doesn't diminish anything else, but people need to feel that space, and that's what this has provided. And I think that's awesome. And I think that we're really going to be able to see a lot of the women in not just IAOA, but also women in the insurance space be able to step up, because we do need to make sure everybody feels like they have a voice and everybody feels like their contribution is really important.
I think what's going to be really, really cool for you guys to see, and we've been going for an hour and I want to respect your time, so we'll wrap up after I say this, but what's really going to be cool for you to see is the people that find you based on your podcast that over the years end up becoming agency owners as a result of following the things that you put out there, and it's empowered them to take things to the next level. So I'm excited to see that. I think that we need more power women in insurance. I shouldn't say that. Let me step back. I think we have plenty of power women in insurance. I think we need to make those people more visible and back them and empower them to do the things that they're fully capable of doing. And in many cases, better than guys. So fellas, they need to check yourself a little bit and listen to what we talked about today. I look at everything through the filter of, if I wouldn't say it to my little girl, I'm not going to say it to anybody else. And that makes it very easy for me to make sure I have good manners. So I hope everybody has enjoyed this episode. Denisse, Teresa, thank you so much. Kyle, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, you got it.
Thank you.
We appreciate having you guys on, and I look forward to watching this thing grow for you, and I wish you nothing but continued success.
Thank you. Thanks for your support. We appreciate that.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon, ladies. By the way, can't wait to do the artwork for this thumbnail. It's going to be awesome. You never know. You never know what's coming. I keep it a secret. Oh no, I already got the screenshot, and I'm trying to figure out. Yeah, I'll post the screenshot. Teresa was in mid explanation, but Denisse, you look like you have this smoldering look on your face, like you were really deep into. It's a good one.
Denisse,
but anyhow, absolutely. Well, listen, ladies, have a good one. Thank you again. Really appreciate it, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
See ya.
You've been listening to the Power Producers Podcast. You can follow Killing Commercial Insurance on Facebook and YouTube. And if you want to take your game to the next level, check out our book, The Extra 2 Minutes, and our website, killingcommercial.com.